Holy City Center Radio. It is episode 341, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Friday, February 14th, 2025. Happy Valentine's Day to all you lovers out there. I hope everyone has an amazing time. If you're single or maybe you're in a relationship but don't have plans, I hope you still have a great Friday. You don't need to acknowledge that it's a lovey holiday by any stretch, but I hope your day, regardless of your relationship status, I hope it's a good one, and I hope you have an amazing weekend. If you go to holycitycenter.com, there's a list of all sorts of Valentine's things going on, and that does include some anti-Valentine's Day events, as well as some Galentine's Day events. So no matter where you are in the relationship that you may or may not currently have, there's something to do. And of course, you can also go to holycitycenter.com/calendar to find any manner of events that does not have to have anything to do with any holiday. So regardless of what's going on, have an amazing Friday and amazing weekend. Been quiet here. I hope you enjoyed the last episode, the interview with Steve Palmer. I've been wanting to speak with him for a long time, and it was nice to finally have that opportunity. What that episode did do is kind of postpone today's topic, which is going to be the entire episode. Yes, we are going to be talking about that story that happened, I think, what was it, Monday night? So after, Monday's episode was already out and the Wednesday episode was already in the can. So postpone this. But yes, we're going to be talking about those explosive accusations that Nancy Mace made on the House floor earlier this week. So there is so many levels to this, so many layers. And I will say I was surprised by some of the response to it. I'll get into that as well as some of the other layers. It's going to be this is a complicated situation for a lot of reasons, and we're going to dive in as much as we can. I look forward to hearing some of your opinions on this entire situation. So without any further delay, let's get into it. All right, so Representative Nancy Mace was teasing, for lack of a better word, that she was going to have a big press conference on Monday at 7. She was hyping it up on her social media platforms. At first, it was just like, you want to be there, you want to hear this. And then she, had her office put out a press release saying that she had uncovered some corruption that affects women. And honestly, I had no idea what to expect. And I think a lot of other people didn't either. And a lot, understandably, assume that whatever it was going to be exaggerated or some nonsense. And that's just based on her history, fair or not. Some of the things she's tried to platform, some of the her opinions and the fights that she's, trying to wage, they're over the top. We've talked about it before. She uses slurs for transgender people. She says some pretty bad things online about other cultures, like how she wanted to live stream immigrants being sent back to their country. And I mean, so understandably, a lot of people, myself included, did not have high hopes that this was actually going to be anything of significance. And I'll give my kind of full opinion as we go along, but I was genuinely shocked by what she ended up doing on the House floor. The accusations that she made. It's a tough thing because you guys know I am no fan of Nancy Mace, but if even a portion of the things she mentioned is true, it is a huge, huge scandal, and everyone involved needs to be held to account because these are some horrific allegations she made. So before I dive into those allegations a little bit more, and I'll try not to, talk about anything that's too gratuitous, but this is an episode that may be tough for some of you. The accusations she made are about sexual exploitation, assault, rape, and similar types of accusations in that realm. So if any of that stuff is triggering or tough for you to listen to, even, just hearing something like that mentioned, I get it. You don't need to listen to this episode. It might be a little tough for you. And if even not necessarily me talking about it just now, but also seeing it in the news, if you're a sexual assault survivor or someone that's struggling with hearing this content, for whatever reason, I definitely encourage you to speak to someone who could help. If you don't have someone that you've worked with before, therapist, psychiatrist, etc., there are hotlines and all sorts of places that are there to help if you're struggling with this. The National Sexual Assault Hotline is 1-800-656-4673. It is available 24 hours a day. So if this topic is going to be hard for you, skip it. I get it. Not a big deal. If you do listen, or you've been hearing the stories and are struggling and haven't called a hotline or spoken to someone yet, I just gave you one hotline that'll be in the show notes as well. And also there's other organizations like Tri-County Speaks that are out there, and plenty of others on the national level as well. So take care of yourself, and don't subject yourself to things that might do harm to you. If you can, in this case, you can easily just switch off the podcast. So just wanted to put that up at the top before we start diving into some of the examples and things that she said. So here we go. So on Monday night, on the floor of the House of Representatives, so this is back on Monday, February 10th, Mace got up there and accused her ex-fiancé and 3 of his male business associates of recording incidents of sexual exploitation, voyeurism, and assault involving multiple women without their knowledge. She also claimed that she too was a victim. So she spoke for nearly an hour. The house at that point at 7 p.m. is kind of empty, so there wasn't too many people there, but she kept gesturing behind her, saying that some of the victims of these 4 men were in attendance. Now, as we continue forward, the thing to know about these 4 men, I will be naming them because they have since responded, and all 4 have issued denials. At first, when this happened, local media was not reporting the names, even though Mace had done it. Not only has she named the guys multiple times, but she actually had like some kind of poster board up there with their pictures and their hometowns underneath, and their names, of course. Because they've denied it, we can move forward and actually mention them. But just want to say they have all denied all of the allegations. So we've covered that. So she labeled all 4 of these men as predators and say that they collaborated to victimize a bunch of different women, and keep recordings of some of their alleged acts. Some of the parts of Nancy's speech were a little confusing, or details, dates, and stuff were a little fuzzy. So this is the best of what I've been able to understand from watching it live, reading newspaper coverage, seeing some of the things she's since put on social media. But this is the understanding I got from all of that. At some point in late 2023, in November, Representative Mace said that she found evidence in the form of footage that was on cell phones and hidden cameras, along with a large volume of images taken of women without their knowledge. And how she stumbled across this was apparently someone had sent her a screenshot of her at the time fiance, whose name is Patrick Bryant. You may remember him. He proposed at what looked like a super staged video by her campaign office, where she was just knocking on doors asking for their support. He just happened to be at one and proposed to her, and they had all these cameras there. So you may remember him from that, and then that they ultimately split. So in any event, or you may know him because he is known in the community, wealthy gentleman involved in different organizations and businesses and things. So apparently someone sent a screenshot of him on a dating app. They sent it to Nancy Mace, basically saying like, hey, your fiance is still listed on a dating app. You should probably know that. When Mace confronted him about it, she claims that he then put his cell phone in a safe, like immediately, which, yeah, that's really shady to do. So eventually, somehow, and this was it was weird. The way she worded it was kind of strange, like saying that she was given access or granted access to the cell phone. It almost seemed like the way she was saying it was almost like she was legally allowed to, but I don't know. I don't know if that was just her trying to like cover bases or whatever, but she claims that Bryant gave her the phone eventually and gave her access to it and allowed her to look through it. And when she did that, that is when she started discovering some things. She claims there's metadata, which can, pinpoint locations and times and where things originated from. There's, and that metadata is attached to pictures and videos of women, a lot of which seem to not know they were being filmed. In some cases, I mean, these are horrific. Again, even if some of these are true, these are horrible crimes against women. Being filmed without their knowledge, regardless if they're clothed or not, that is horrible. That is a wild invasion of privacy. But of course, most of these videos are them in some manner of being undressed, and some are worse than that. She claimed that she saw a video of one of the four men having sex with one of the women who did not appear to be responsive, appeared to be drugged, passed out. And Mace later claimed she recognized the women because some of these were like wives of other people, of men that worked with these four men, or she knew them from the community, or whatever it may be. And she recognized this woman, went up to, not went up to her, I don't know, called her, whatever. But when she brought it up to the woman, she had no recollection of this incident happening. So she had been raped and didn't even know, which I can't even imagine any of this happening. Like, it's just unfathomable to me. But in any event, so she's finding all this stuff on his phone. She has a background in cybersecurity, I think. So, she claimed that there was some stuff that he tried to delete that she was easily able to find, and uncovered all this stuff. At one point, she said she found a video of a naked woman who appeared to be unaware she was being recorded by a hidden camera. When she zoomed in on the woman, oh, no, she heard the woman start speaking, and she recognized that it was her own voice. So she was on this video. I don't know if she was in a room getting out of the shower or just undressed and changing, but she was naked on this video. She says she had no knowledge of it. And so now she herself is seeing that she's a victim in addition to all these other women. She could identify the site of the recording as a property owned by her former fiance and one of his business partners. And she just discovered so many other things involving these types of crimes. She also mentioned going to a party at one point. She had I think she said 2 vodka sodas, and that was it. She says she's never blacked out before. And after just 2 of those drinks, she blacked out and doesn't remember much of the night. And that was her, remembering that moment made her kind of connect the dots that maybe that's what happened to the woman, one of the women in the video, if not many of the women that she found videos and photos of. And she claims that she was raped that night. She says there's flashes of memories of what happened throughout the evening, and and when she was home or whatever, and so she claims that she was raped that night. So again, just horrible, horrific, disgusting crimes against these women. I mean, it was shocking hearing all of this. So there was others. I think you get the point at this moment. She also went after the police, essentially saying that they're not doing enough work on this, which that's not. It's not right, obviously, but it's not breaking news. Unfortunately, most of us in this country have seen story after story, whether it's on the news, you read it in the newspaper, or maybe someone personally who has been sexually assaulted or raped, and the cases tend to go nowhere. It certainly seems the justice system favors the men in these situations. So this isn't news to most of us. It was to Representative Mace, which, okay. And so this has become her. It was clear from this talk that this was going to become her cause that she's going to try to champion. She had, she said her staff made stickers that say "Survivor" for her and the other women that were there. While she was on the floor, her staff was posting quotes from the speech, which is not abnormal, but they were also including pictures of Mace with some quotes written above it or on the image. This was a planned out thing. That at the top, she said she knew she was doing the right thing, but was afraid of I don't know, blowback or something like that. She made a whole big production out of the beginning of it. She had a Bible that, she put her hand on and said, she's talking about her faith that she, which by the way, she just kind of, discovered, I guess, 5 years ago. This is according to her. That's when she was saved, when, she really started to become religious. She put her hand on the Bible. It's a whole show. But I tried to ignore that stuff and just focus on the accusations. And they are horrible. It involves multiple properties. It involves men allegedly filming these incidents, sharing them with each other. She said there was also videos or pictures of young kids. She didn't say that they were, drugged or and they weren't unclothed or anything, but they were just pictures that would be weird to find on an adult man's phone. Like, it just didn't sound good. And again, you can go look at all the details if you want to. So then there's that side of things. She also said that she had set up, well, we'll get to some of the other stuff here, but she also has set up a victim hotline that was an 843 number, but it was her own office or her who created this hotline. So this is not an official sexual assault, like the one I mentioned up at the top, a hotline. This is specifically for people who may know those men, who may have been on their properties for whatever reason, may have thought something weird happened to them while they hung out with one of these men, or are concerned that something now did because if they were on these men's properties and they have security cameras, hidden cameras that people don't know about, even if they didn't, have an experience where they blacked out or anything, they could have been seen somewhere without their knowledge and being recorded. So that seems like a good idea. Unfortunately, we'll get into it a little bit. Most of, not just locally, but nationally, the sexual assault hotlines are saying, don't call that number. So we'll get into that in a moment. All right. So after all this, and also another thing she did was she went after Attorney General Alan Wilson, saying that his office knows about these crimes and hasn't done anything, and then tried to say he doesn't care about women and, blah, blah, blah. That part was a pretty transparent move by her. As we've talked about, she's going to be running against Alan Wilson for governor. In all likelihood, they're both going to be running. So that was a pretty transparent, like, oh, okay, you just want to, kind of jackknife a dig against him in here because you're going to hope it's going to help you as you run against him for governor. There's a couple issues with that, which we'll get to in a moment. In addition to something that people pointed out, when you're a sitting member of Congress like this and you're speaking on the House floor, your speech is protected against things like libel, or slander, rather, since it's spoken. So these men, it seems, wouldn't be able to sue her for, defamation, for slander, whatever it may be, because she made that on the House floor. So a lot of people saw that as being inappropriate, coming up and accusing people of things in a way where you're completely protected from doing so if you're lying or embellishing or anything else. Now, I get that, and I think that's a fair criticism. I don't know that necessarily means that what she was saying was false, because again, even if a portion of it is true, it's really bad. And if these men did, in fact, commit these crimes, they should 100% be held accountable. I was believing what she was saying. And I was kind of surprised after the fact to see so many, and from both sides of the aisle, basically a lot of people saying, I don't believe any of it. I don't think any of this happened. Others were kind of in the boat of with me, like, this sounds really bad. This absolutely needs to be looked into. And whoever is responsible needs to be held accountable. And if it is a lie, then she needs to be held accountable. But they still were kind of brushing it aside, like she's just doing this for attention, and I'm sure she's embellishing. And then they pointed to things like the theatrics, having the poster board up there. She also had one of Alan Wilson saying he's like a do-nothing attorney general or something. She had like the stickers. She's got like her staff posting stuff as she's talking, making it become a tiny bit of a circus. And so I totally get that. And I agree. I think this was done. It was not done in the right way. And the theatrics take away from it. She also at one point pulled out handcuffs because she claimed that local police in one of these districts said that they were investigating her as well as part of this, which I would imagine is a normal thing. If someone comes to you and gives the story she just gave, they got to make sure she wasn't involved and she just wasn't, trying to spite her ex. Because if she was involved, obviously, this is another whole other thing where she could be in trouble. So I certainly get why they would at least look into her and ask her, how did you get this? How did you come across it? And you know what I mean? Like, they're not just going to blindly believe you, even if it sounds believable. So she made a whole show of that, basically saying if they're going to arrest me for protecting women, here are the handcuffs. If anyone wants to handcuff me now, do it. Like, just made a whole show of it. And then on social media, I can't remember if it was Wednesday or Thursday, she's got her holding the handcuffs outside some building. And, so she's making hay out of it. And yeah, no, that sucks. Like, I wish she wasn't doing that. I wish she just made these accusations, put some pressure on. I'm fine with that. Put pressure on law enforcement if they're not doing enough. Um, and I wish that was kind of it. But I get while the optics and the messenger um, are a little tough to swallow uh, because of her past, fair or not. She was harshly being judged about this because of how she's acted previously and how she's turned small, minor incidents or comments or whatever into these huge issues, and she's selling merch for some of these things. You know what I mean? So, like, she's an imperfect messenger. There's no doubt about it. But that doesn't mean she's lying. So I think, I hope people are at least, you can separate the theatrics and the doing it on the House floor, dragging Alan Wilson into it when so far it seems it's not a good, an accurate complaint against him. I hope we can all separate that, focus on the accusations themselves, and demand that there's answers. And those answers could either be Nancy Mace was 100% right, or she was partially right, or she made it all up. Regardless of where this goes, it absolutely needs to be looked into. I want to make that crystal clear. I also want to make it clear that I thought Mace was telling the truth for that stuff, for the actual things she's discovered and what she was alleging. I believe it. None of it rang as false to me. She at times was choking up and getting upset, and yes, I know people can fake things, and again, I am not a Nancy Mace fan, so for me to say this, that uh I'm putting aside that stuff to say it sounds believable. Could some stuff be embellished? Could she be wrong about a portion of it, or made some assumptions that are incorrect? Yeah, that's possible, but based on just how she was delivering it, her actions since that time frame of late 2023, and how kind of erratic and over the top she's become. She always was, but she's getting worse and worse. And a lot of people have said, is her mental health okay? And she said in this that she was, seen a doctor or whatever, and has been diagnosed with different things, including like post traumatic stress disorder. And, so all of that makes sense. And her attacks against trans women, you can start to understand, like, oh, maybe that's why she went way over the top, because she sees trans women as men. And if these men were doing these horrific things to her and other women, including her fiance, like, imagine discovering that your fiance was doing all these things with three other men, from his businesses, and again, allegedly, of course. But just imagine that happening. Like, if you might act a little erratic, and you might really sound like you just hate any man that lives, or trans women, because you believe that they're men and not trans women. It makes a little bit more sense. Doesn't make it right, but it does sort of explain, like, oh, okay, well, yeah, since that time frame, her behavior has certainly escalated. So that's another reason I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. By the way, she also accused Bryant of physically assaulting her when she attempted to flee, in her words, their home, after the relationship ended and these discoveries were made. So that's another side of this. She says she's lived in multiple places. She's been scared, that he or whoever might come for her. And yeah, she's being treated for PTSD, and so it certainly makes sense if your life is really going that way. Yeah, it might make sense that you're being a little erratic or over the top at times. Again, doesn't make it right. Just another reason why I think that she's telling the truth. So I fully support this being looked into. I fully support, if these things happen, these men facing whatever the appropriate consequences would be. And if she's lying, she deserves to be held accountable. So I hope that's pretty clear. I was kind of surprised to see people just outright dismissing this because of her past. And I get it. Like I said, just because she is an imperfect, speaker, person bringing this to light, doesn't mean it's not true. Just because you dislike her politics and how she treats other people, doesn't mean she's lying here. She's, maybe not the person you want leading this charge, but she is at the moment. So, all right. So all four men have issued denials, and all have mentioned, they're going to retain counsel and look into it. I said I was going to mention the other three, but it didn't normally come up. But I will talk about one. Eric Bowman said to the Post and Courier via text that he unequivocally denied all the allegations made against him, said they were baseless, repugnant, and defamatory, and that he intends to fight it in a court of law. So the name Eric Bowman might be familiar to some of you. He used to own the Charleston Battery. If you don't remember from that, do you remember that incident back in 2018 where there was an incident at Dunleavy's pub, which is out on Sullivan's Island, around 12:50 a.m. One evening, police showed up and said Bowman was leaving the area in his golf cart, and he was trying to avoid paying a $124 bill that he owed the pub. While leaving, police say two witnesses reported Bowman's involvement in a traffic accident with injuries, and then police said he left the scene without rendering aid, providing information, or reporting the incident. So basically, he was walking out on a $124 tab. He's in his golf cart. Someone was trying to stop him and say, hey, you owe money or, whatever, something to that extent. And he just kept driving in his golf cart. The man who was trying to stop him ultimately suffered multiple abrasions, a hand injury from broken glass, and a sprained right shoulder. He was treated by EMS and then taken to a local hospital. That was in 2018. A year later, Bowman sold the Charleston Battery to a new ownership group. And then ultimately, this went to trial, and a jury ordered that Bowman had to pay $1.8 million in actual damages and $2.7 million in punitive damages. So that, if you remember that story, that's one of the men that's being accused. Does that mean that the stuff said about him's true? No, but I just wanted to put that out there. That this, if you recognize that name, that may be why. Alan Wilson's office responded as well. They said that everything that Mace alleged on the House floor was actually never referred to his office. The office said that a police report needs to be filed first, and then it's investigated by local police before it's referred to a solicitor or the attorney general's office for prosecution. So he's basically saying, we never saw this case. The first step is to go to local police. They investigate it, and then it can be referred to a solicitor or an attorney general for prosecution. So if there is an investigation, it hasn't been referred to his office yet. So why would he be involved? Again, just certainly seems like a very transparent attack on Wilson because she thought it would help. And from what I've read on places like Fitz News, the Twitter account, which I know, they're saying, but they do have a lot of sources that it's not going well in political circles, saying that she went about this the wrong way and that her attack on Wilson was so transparent and craven that, they're again, not necessarily saying she's not telling the truth, but they're criticizing the theatrics, the bringing Wilson into it when he shouldn't be, etc. So that's what his office said. Mace has since said that she knows he's lying, that she has brought it up to him personally. So we'll see where that whole thing goes. But yes, his office also denied that this case has been brought to them. So are there any cases? So far, only one organization, SLED, the State Law Enforcement Division, has confirmed that there is some sort of investigation related to this. And they said it was, voyeurism and exploitation, and a couple other things are being investigated. And they said the target of the investigation is Patrick Bryant, her ex-fiancé. So there is at least that investigation going on, but it's ongoing, which would explain again why Alan Wilson his office has not been given this case yet, because the investigation is not done. And SLED said once it is done, they will certainly make details public and their decision and et cetera. So there's been no other, she mentioned certain places around Charleston, like I think Sullivan's was one, Isle of Palms. So far, local police have not confirmed or denied, for that matter, any cases that are open against any of these men. So SLED is the only one that's confirmed anything so far. And again, they've only confirmed an investigation. They didn't provide any details on it. So what's the truth? We don't know, which is why I'm saying let's let this play out. If pressure needed to be applied, I think she did that. And hopefully these investigations, or the one investigation, completes soon, and we'll have some answers. Whether those answers are, yeah, these men are going to be charged with crimes, or no, we have found zero evidence, whatever. So That was the big story. And again, my takeaway is I believe her. Is every detail perfectly correct? Maybe not. But I believe something happened. And it 100% needs to be looked into. Women need to be believed in these circumstances because they often are not just by, people in their lives and people on the outside, but sometimes by police too. And these are tough crimes depending on the circumstances to investigate and to move forward. It can be hard to have proof depending on what exactly happened. Certainly seemed like Nancy Mace, based on what she's saying, had lots of proof of at least some of these crimes. So we'll see what happens, but it certainly needs to move forward. Can you still dislike Nancy Mace? Of course you can. Can you still think the theatrics, the attack on Alan Wilson, the handcuffs, that whole side of things is too much and was not really appropriate for this scenario, and that she was using potentially a really horrific and horrible thing that indeed is true and happened to her for political gain? Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt that's what she's doing. She's doing a brave thing. Again, assuming this is all true, and I have no reason to doubt that it isn't. This is a very brave thing for her to speak out about it. Did she go about it the right way? Maybe not. But that can't be ignored. But did she also take that opportunity to try to raise her profile, get on TV, get more media coverage, get donations, make an attack on Alan Wilson that she can use later? Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. And you can dislike that and think it's disgusting. And I do think some of that's disgusting. But let's not lose sight, because those are all things we already knew about Nancy Mace. We know that's how she is. We know how she will exploit anything she possibly can for her political and personal gain. But we knew that. We can put that aside and just focus on the real point that we should all be concerned about, is that there's a potential ring of 4 guys, maybe more, who are committing very horrible crimes against women, and it absolutely needs to be looked into. So I hope that helps you all understand where I'm at with my opinion of what happened and the opinion of the whole thing in general. She's not the perfect messenger, that's for sure, but it doesn't mean she's not telling the truth, and it doesn't mean it shouldn't be at least looked into. And I hope that's what happens, and we get some answers, regardless of what those answers end up being. So we'll see. I look forward to hearing any of your feedback about this situation. And oh, yes, by the way, as I mentioned, she provided a victim hotline that supposedly it's not staffed. People can leave a message. She says people have called that said they're afraid they may be victims and things like that. But this isn't a hotline in the sense of you're getting the right help you may need. Perhaps it'll help Nancy Mace gather more evidence that she can hand over to police, and that could be good, absolutely. But there is a lot more that needs to be done for victims. Every victim's different, of course. So I've gotten some messages from local organizations, and I've also seen the stories where some of these sexual assault hotlines are saying, "Don't call Nancy Mace's hotline. It's not somewhere where you're going to get help." In the sense of what these hotlines normally provide. And it could actually be triggering for survivors to be in this situation. They're just saying, hey, you should probably call, something on the national level, um, or look into an organization like Tri-County Speaks, which is here locally. I've also seen some posts on social media, where, again, if all this is true, then let's look into it. But there's also the hypocritical aspect of her supporting a man like Donald Trump or Matt Gaetz, who have all been credibly accused of different sorts of sexual assault, or sex trafficking, or statutory rape. All manner of sex crimes, and she'll stand up to them and say that she had a tweet just today or yesterday saying, Donald Trump's a real man who stands up for women. You mean the guy who said when you're rich and powerful, you can do whatever you want, grab women in their crotch, like that guy? That's the guy who was found credibly accused of sexual assaulting E. Jean Carroll, that guy? That's the one who's protecting women. So there's certainly the hypocritical side to it. And she doesn't seem to have realized the hypocrisy there of supporting people in her party who've been accused of these things, She's also basically said that anyone who's accused Donald Trump of sexual assault or something similar is a liar. That's basically what she did. You remember the whole George Stephanopoulos interview? Oh, well, that was a civil case. So, basically saying you shouldn't believe these accusations against Trump. Yeah, so there is all that side to it, of course. So don't forget that. She also tweeted just in January of this year that real men are joining our fight to protect women and girls. Thank you, Attorney General Alan Wilson. So less than a month ago, she was praising him for supporting women, when allegedly this investigation has been going on since November of 2023, and she's claiming his office knew about it and did nothing. But here she is less than a month ago praising him for protecting women at some event. I mean, it's just, look, there's all of that to it. So we're going to keep that in mind. But again, it doesn't mean that it's not true. Now, if you're hearing all this and you want to help people, again, Tri-County Speaks is a good organization you can look at. They're here locally. They are struggling to stay staffed, I'm told. And any donation or shares of their organization can help them because, yes, regardless of what this story turns out to be, these types of things do happen, and they do happen here. So there is a need to have people here locally who can respond to those who are in a crisis or have been attacked or, need to speak to someone. So keep that all in mind as well. I'll have some of those links in the show notes. But a horrific story, again, even if a portion of it's true, it was shocking to hear. And we'll certainly be keeping an eye on it. Thanks for listening to this edition of Holy City Center Radio. I know it's a little bit longer than normal and definitely darker than normal, but that's the subject matter we were dealing with. This is an important story no matter which way it goes. So I appreciate those who listened and stayed through the end. If you have comments, questions, please let me know. Anything involving this story, if you think I miscategorized anything or maybe didn't speak appropriately on a part of the topic or what have you, let me know. It's a complicated story in that we, the public, don't have evidence. We are told there's evidence, and we're told it's being investigated, and there's not much we can do as the public. So I will certainly provide updates as they come through. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins with LMC Sound System for producing this and every episode of Holy City Center Radio. And thank you to Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every show. Have a great weekend. I hope it goes well. I'll be back with you next week. Until then, good night and good luck.